Hey guys, Jamie here from the Flow Genome Project. Welcome to Freaky Friday. Go ahead and turn on your sound, and then you can hear this conversation and we can have a good time. So, today's Freaky Friday. Congratulations for making it this far in our collective weeks. We just finished wrapping up our new book, Stealing Fire, and actually sending it off to the sort of printing press phase of things at HarperCollins. So super stoked on that. Hard push this week, earlier in fact, and really grateful to have been able to refine and just tighten. We were literally sort of copy editing our stuff with almost a neuro-linguistic level of precision. So it's literally not just what are the words trying to communicate, but what is the rhythm of decoding them, and what is the sequence and the connection, the connective tissue, sort of syntactic connective tissue between them. So fired up. We just submitted that about half an hour ago. I figured I would jump in because we've been kind of radio silent for a bit. What we're here to talk about today is fundamentally the life-changing magic of leveling up. And now, while many, many folks, our little golden retrievers over by the lake, in fact, let me just show you guys. This is kind of awesome. Here we are. Down, chilling on the mighty fine Colorado River here in Austin, Texas. It's a bit of a gloomy day, but other than that, kicking ass. So, we are not going to talk about sort of generic believe you can achieve kind of self-improvement stuff when we're talking about leveling up. We're literally talking about a specific perspectival shift, so literally the way we look at things, moving that from regular waking consensus reality where I am singularly and exclusively fixed in an identity construct. Who I am, where I'm from, my biography, my story, what's happening to me today, am I seeking pleasure, am I avoiding pain, what are my varying psychological narratives that therefore justify, rationalize, explain my situation, usually with me on the right? And instead of that, being fixed in a singular exclusive identity, the magic of leveling up is you get up on the balcony. And that is what Dr. Ron Heifetz at Harvard, actually maybe he's not a PhD, he could just, I bet he is because he's at Harvard Business School. And there's a phenomenal book that he's got which is called Leadership on the Line. And he basically talks about how fundamentally there are two types of leaders. There are people who just get people from point A to point B, you kind of make stuff happen. That's just basically a technical leader. You're just doing, input, output, and you're basically cogs and gears in between. But then he talks about transformative leaders. And transformative leaders don't just engage in technical change or doing the stuff that's right in front of them. They engage in adaptive change. And so that would be like the MLKs, the Gandhis, various visionaries who have just rethought a social structure or pattern, and by necessity must have rethought themselves as well ahead of time. And the key finding that they found at HBS, Harvard Business School, was that the adaptive leaders, the people who are really making a benevolent dent in the universe, are those who most consistently can hold multiple perspectives. And Heifetz calls it getting up on the balcony. So when we're talking about leveling up, we're talking about getting up on the balcony of our egoic identities. And at first that seems very strange, and really the only roots to that were in the Western world kind of hedonism, just I'm going to pursue oblivion to knock myself out of my fixed frame of reference or identity. But in the Eastern traditions, there was some form of transcendence or negation, right? And so those were kind of the only ways we had to even consider exploring what does a multi-perspective point of view look like, and who would I be if I was holding all those browser windows open concurrently. Right, so in the past that might have just been sort of schizophrenia, or or some whoops off the rails kind of situation where people would have a very hard time translating back. These days, both our technology, our metaphors, computers, cloud, consciousness, all of these things that we're much more conversant with today than we were even a century ago or even half a century ago. I mean, we could not be having this conversation in 1950s America. People would have no idea what we were discussing or what on earth any of it meant. It would be like that movie with Reese Witherspoon, Pleasantville, I think it was called, right? Something like that. So the key to getting up on the balcony is to first conduct the experiment for yourself. Go find some moments of selflessness, what we would call ecstasis, those moments stepping outside yourself. And when you do that, and by the way, I don't have any seeming ability right now to see any comments. But so it goes. Oh, there we go. Hi, Sparkle Allen. All right, good to see you. Step one in finding your way up to the balcony and engaging in that life-changing magic is to first find the zipper to your own monkey suit. You have to conduct the experiment, and you have to confirm for yourself that, in fact, we may not be our outer wrappers. And really, that's an experience. That's what an experience of ecstasis will do. Heifetz's colleague at Harvard, Bob Keegan, who is the chair of adult development in the psych department, calls it something very specific. He calls it the subject-object shift. We talk about it all the time, I find myself doing, which is fundamentally this is a Western psychological descriptor of low-grade enlightenment. That's it. I mean, taken to its higher levels. At lower levels, it's just, I'm just growing up, I'm leveling up. What I was swimming in, I'm aware is water, and I keep moving on. And it's not until I'm aware of the thing outside it, and I can point at it, talk to it, name it, that I gain control or mastery of it and or integration with it. So getting up on the balcony, as Heifetz and Keegan suggest, right, is a very mystical, under-sensationalized path of accelerated vertical development in your consciousness. And once you do that, as with any faster CPU processing computing stuff that we've been making use of in the last 10 years, these whole smartphones in our pockets, better than, a room full of Commodore 64s, we gain the ability to process and integrate more information feeds more concurrently. And here's the key. So now let's make it personal, because I know that was relatively kind of like Mr. Spockish on the logical level, but to bring it into our own lives and how it's going to feel if and when we engage this. And it's nice to see some thumbs up. All right, yeah, I hear you. I'll bring it down a couple of octaves. What happens then is and I'll give you an example. So I was just with my woman a couple of nights ago, and we were trying to have a really pleasant romantic evening, but something was a little off, and we found ourselves just crossing wires, staticky, kind of tripping over each other, both conversationally and understanding what each other was meaning when we were saying things. And then even at a level of just goofiness, by the time I was already getting hacked off, and then doors open when I really wanted them closed, lights on, fans by mistake, it literally became a comedy of errors. In fact, it became such a laughable just explosion of all things us chafing against each other, that it was kind of like we couldn't actually get hijacked by it. Neither of us could be sort of hoodwinked by the utter absurdity of this drama. So we're sort of looking at it, we're like, okay, we're feeling all these things. Yes, those things are still up, but we're not collapsing into the identity narrative surrounding them all. And then there's this very strange thing that happens, because you're like, wow, okay, there's probably something very interesting for us to learn, decode, right, interpret out of that system, basically that perturbation of our field. And rather than engaging a preference, I like this, happy and loving, I don't like that. As long as we don't bifurcate reality into that which we accept or select and that which we reject or deny, then the thing is whole cloth still. And then, where do you live? Because if you're not in that story, if basically the only thing that hijacks us from remaining in whatever you'd want to call it, love-like consciousness, you could call it the information layer, you can call it zazen, choose your poison. But the only reason we would leave that space, fundamentally the scintillating diamond of Jah truth, right, with all of its infinite possibilities, is to collapse. That story we feel we are so deserving of. It gives us so much juice, validation, vindication, that it's like a so it's only when we resist the urge to grab it and activate that story, basically that drama narrative, we get to kick it up on the balcony still. And up on the balcony is absolutely awesome. And that's the life-changing magic, right? That's where things get magic, because when everything is possible, you're in that superposed field of the waveform, right? It's not a wave, it's not a particle, right? And in between all that, in that interstitial moment, just like if you're ever paddling a paddleboard or a sea kayak for that matter in the ocean, right? Where do you turn? You turn on the crests of waves, not on the troughs. If you try and turn in the troughs of the waves or life, right? It's bow to stern, it's messy, it takes a hell of a lot of effort, and you can get dumped. But if you ride things to the crest and then you pivot, right, there's an awful lot of freedom and a lot of responsiveness for a minimum amount of energy, right? So that is what we do when we spend more time on the balcony. The balcony is the equivalent of the trough of that wave, and when we're there. So and then fundamentally, I mean, and that's where, hell's bells, I mean, gospel spirituals or uplifting philosophy all speak of that kind of experience of communitas, being lived by love. And that becomes something that's a distinct possibility, but you can get there. You don't have to wonder about cultivating love as an emotion, and you don't have to worry about having faith as a belief. You can just go conduct the experiment, and the experiment can, whatever that energy that you get to experience when you are not animating, right, personal drama narratives. You get it all back, and then what do you do with it? And you realize, okay, I am at the crest of waves. I am sitting at the intersection of a fascinating possibility and probability space. And now it's up to me to just just distribute my intention, right? My opposable thumbs, my ability and desire to engage and shape the world around me. And I do it with a sort of, almost a turbo button of hyper efficiency, because I'm no longer running all the extra stuff. And by the way, when we all meet each other there, awesome, super duper fun, and really worthwhile. So fantastic to see everybody. That's me. I'm out for the weekend. It was a wonderful week. I hope yours was too. And this was a Freaky Friday from Jamie here at the Flow Genome Project. Be well, and we will catch you guys next time.